of religion sometime if you'd be interested.
Well, I'm awake and alert. I mean, to spend a few minutes on the infiltration of the Catholic Church. Give us your view on that.
Oh, goodness. Well, there was a good fiction novel written, Windswept House, by Malachi Martin, which gives you a good idea. He claimed 85% of it was true when he wrote it, but regardless, it gives you a good picture of the infiltration through the 20th century. And it was more or less planned just prior to, about the same time that I think the roundtable discussions were going on with Rhodes, in the form that we saw it happen. And there were the Pope of the early 20th century, Pius X. He noted it. He called it modernism, which has nothing to do with being modern. It's just the title of a particular brand of philosophy, which was especially promoted by the Jesuits of the day.
It's theosophy, basically.
Yeah, well, theosophy, I studied that too, so I could understand it. Theosophy is pretty much the occult, with Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, and...
But I mean, what do you say about Loyola and all that, and the rise in the last 400 years of the Jesuits?
You know, the Jesuits were actually suppressed by a pope after about 100 years of their existence. So we don't know the reasons for that. I mean, I don't have access to the reasons for that. There's not some kind of elite initiation for priests, like is sometimes claimed. You know, I'm a man on the front lines for the church. That's just like any other pastor. But the Jesuits themselves seem to have been co-opted about the middle of the 19th century. There were some well-known writers towards the end that were writing this modernist philosophy, which basically said you needed to adapt theology to the times rather than keeping the traditions that went back to the time of Christ. Instead, you would adapt them for the day, and then that's why it's called modernism. You would update everything, but then you would continually update everything so that you could then be brought up to date with the programming of the world order. See, that was the idea. Then in the early 20th century, you even had a brand new theology developed by Teilhard de Chardin. You might have heard of him.
Yes.
He was a priest, a Jesuit priest who developed the idea of the Omega point, where everything was supposed to adapt in an evolutionary fashion until it reached some sort of spiritual, what would you call it, transcendence, a point of transcendence. And he changed, therefore, our going to heaven, being with God for eternity, into a sort of earthly evolution, into some sort of transcendental state. So there's a good example right there. So, the Jesuits there are good Jesuits, I'm sure, faithful priests like me, but their order was certainly used in many ways for the promotion of this Luciferian agenda, no doubt.
All right. Well, Pastor Frank, good to hear from you. Appreciate the call. Very interesting. Lance in Texas, you're on the air worldwide.
Yes, sir, Alex. I gave some money earlier. I just wanted to say that I'm so excited tonight.
We couldn't. Hey, listen. Lance, when I say we couldn't do it without you, that's a fact. We couldn't do any of it without you. Thank you.
Man, we are brothers, man. I believe every bit of that. Man, when your son was on the air, I just got tears in my eyes. I can't wait for this generation to...
Guys, cue that back up. First time my son's ever been heard on radio. My wife came up. He wanted to make something for the show today, and she didn't even tell me about it because she later had second thoughts about airing it. And as they drove home tonight, about an hour ago, they were up here. They heard it on the local radio, 90.1, which preempted what it's regularly doing for this show. It was their idea. I appreciate them doing that. But they heard it and we're very, very excited. But we're going to air that in a minute. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, I just wanted to let all the people know, even the people that are overseas listening to this, we need you. There's a lot of people still asleep in America, and, you're one of the loudest voices out there to reach these people. And
well, Lance, people are finally ready to hear the truth. This is the great time. People for 50 years, 48 years, like Dr. Stan Monteith, have beat their head against the wall, but now it's having an effect because we're right, and it's true, and people are ready to hear. Now is the time to get the word out. Go ahead.
Yes, you're so right. Well, I'm glad to see y'all are having fun up there, you and the crew. I got some news from my dad. I've been trying to just let my dad know about. I'm not going to stop on him. He's a commissioner here in the county that I'm at, and he's, you know, he knows something's up, and I'm just like sending him all this. Well, I found out that the Tea Party that is here, they can't meet at our church anymore because the pastor is afraid that the 501c3.
Yeah, which Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It's another fraud like the fake mortgages. They don't have to have, they tell them, oh, just sign, you know, their denominations say, oh, just sign this very simple, easy thing. You're going to be a charity. They're not charities. They're churches. The government has no jurisdiction, and they're telling even parishioners at Catholic churches, Baptist churches, Methodist churches, don't talk about politics even at a church picnic. That's not America. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not America. You're right. And I told him you need to get your money out of that church and get out of that church, you know.
Yeah, we need to refound real churches, and it's happening. But, I mean, listen, my parents go to a major Methodist church here in town. They had a good preacher, but the Methodists control where preachers go. They sent him to Tennessee. And my kids have been there many times at Sunday school. You know, they go most weeks. I've been there. I thought it was a good church. He was anti-globalist, anti-war. They sent in this husband and wife team there. And it's Bill Gates is going to save us. We're going to open the borders up. It's wonderful. It is carbon taxes are great. And, you know, my parents have been there for years and teach Sunday school and are great people. And they're just like, what do we do? Well, you know, we have, again, a church run by the government is not a church.
You're right. You're right about that. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. You know, I like to debate with my dad, and I'm getting through with him little by little, you know, and I bring up this Romans 13, and I said, well, Dad, what about the Bible, not the Bible in North Korea? I'm like, so you just want me to lay down and you know, he's like, oh, well, if we were in North Korea, the Bible wouldn't mean that. I'm like, what? Well, you don't even make any sense, you know? Like, so, I mean, he still wants to believe what he's believed, but he's slowly coming around, you know what I mean? Alex?
Oh, absolutely. And just keep up the great work, and God bless you, Lance. I really appreciate your call. Let's talk to, I just got a surprise call here at the office, so they were talking to me for part of the time you were talking to Lance. I apologize. We'll see if this happens. This is getting crazy. Let's go ahead and talk to Alfred in California. Alfred, you're on the air.
Great, Alex. It's good to hear your voice, and it's great to be speaking with you.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, I didn't have any money to donate to you, unfortunately, but I wanted to take the opportunity to say that I think for new listeners who are starting to tune in, I've been listening to you from the beginning of the year now, every day. Actually, I was woken up by reading a couple of authors, one of them being Bill Cooper. And, you know, at first he had some negative things to say about you, so I kind of strayed away. But, of course, I kept an optimistic view of everything. I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I have to say that listening to your radio show every day, I've been impressed. I like the way that you present your information, and I know that you're very passionate about what you do. And I can understand sometimes maybe there's well, I would say a little over-exaggeration, but, I don't want to even say that that's a negative thing because I know that you're trying to get us all fired up. So I want to say I really appreciate everything you do.
Well, Alfred, let me say something about Bill Cooper. I've been given his book like in 1997 or so. I don't ever talk about really UFOs, very rarely. Now it's so mainstream we do. And I could never hear his shortwave. It was like on a 10,000 watt out of Maine. I'd been sent a few tapes. But before that happened, he had IRS trouble. I had him on. And he was famous for profanity. We had a delay, as we do here. And it's not engaged right now because we're not on a bunch of stations. And, you know, he attacked me. And, you know, said I wore ruby nipple rings. I mean, it was just bizarre craziness. And he made up a bunch of stuff, edited my shows together, did a lot of bad things. And I forgive him. But the establishment's tried to set Bill Cooper up against me as if, you know, it's him against me. Bill did a lot of good work on the mystery religions and the globalists, and I appreciate your call. I really do. Now, I got a crazy call about 5 minutes ago from Tom Danheiser, the producer of Coast to Coast AM, one of the biggest, probably the second biggest radio show in the world after Rush Limbaugh. I mean, even Glenn Beck admits it's bigger than his show, 16 million listeners. And I heard George Norrie wanted to come on, which is great. I love going on his show. Haven't been on as much this year. Miss going on, but on a few times. And I'm just flattered to have the great George Norrie, who I've tried to get on many times. He's been on it once, but he's hard to get on. He's so busy. To have George Norrie calling in. George, what are you doing gracing me with your presence?
I just wanted to congratulate you on your patriotic service, Alex. And I understand you've got this massive marathon going on right now. That takes guts, too. I'm on the air for 4 hours. You're going to be on the air forever. But
George, it's good to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in a few months.
You also don't get a chance to talk to me on the phone that much because I'm always in the studio and you're all over the place when we do our shows and our segments.
Well, George, let me grovel. When do I get to come back on the second biggest radio show?
You know what? We were just talking about that today before I got an email from one of my listeners and one of your listeners who said, George, you got to call Alex's show. He's doing this marathon right now. So I said, yeah, I think I'll do that. But, yeah, we're working on that. I want to do more of a full show with you instead of just a quick segment this time. There's lots going on this planet, as you know.
Wow, a guy that talks to 16 million people a day. I'm lucky if I talk to 2 million. George Norrie, the icon, second biggest radio show in the world, calling in. George, so much is happening. I'm glad you called because all these military personnel said UFOs were going to show up yesterday and today. I made fun of it, and here's ABC News. FAA unable to identify object flying over New York City. And I look at it, it looks like something out of Star Wars or The Fifth Element. You're the expert on this. What in the world is going on?
It is bizarre. That's going to be our first hour tonight, Alex, on Coast to Coast. Nobody knows what's going on. Police say it could have been a balloon. Now, balloons don't stay stationary up there unless they're tethered. There was no tether.
Balloons don't have big lights on the front of them like out of Blade Runner.
Exactly. And what about the reports of China shutting down airports? Something bizarre is going on here. Now, you know, I'm going to be one of the first to say, look, some of this could be governmental. There's no doubt about that. But I've always believed that this planet's been visited by ETs, and we might have even been seeded by them. But something's going on. If all this is real and they're coming back now, it's strange. But you got to remember, there's always been a talk about Project Bluebeam, and that is a false flag, a UFO invasion to get us all riled up so the New World Order can do what they want to do. You're aware of it, I'm aware of it, and I think we need to constantly watch that possibility.
Well, we do, George. What else are you covering on Coast to Coast AM tonight, kicking off at midnight Central?
We're going to do a little bit on 2012, and then just have a little fun here in Los Angeles.
Well, George, I don't know how long you have with us, but I'm glad one of your listeners spurred you to call in because you're a hard guy to get on the phone, even though I have your cell phone number. It's good to have you popping in.
Well, that's good. It's my pleasure. And for the years, Alex, you've done a great job for us on Coast to Coast, illuminating the world about the Illuminati and, just keeping us above, I think, the radar with all the information that you've given us over the years.
Well, I'll say this. You're a Emmy award-winning, multiple-time TV producer, Navy veteran, everything you've done. And Art Bell is such an icon. I can't think of anybody whose voice and intellect and just overall radio presence is more powerful than Art Bell. But overall, you took Coast to Coast 6-7 years ago in a completely different direction, bringing in the hardcore issues. And I remember being on your show 6 years ago talking about derivatives and all your other guests coming on and talking about the implosion of the economy and how they promote troops on the streets as the solution and the devaluation of the dollar. But it's one thing to academically know it and hear you cover it almost every night. But what does it feel like for you, George Norrie, to actually see it now unfolding? I mean, it's one thing to see a train coming and know it's going to hit you. It's another thing to have it hit you. I mean, we're now here in the crosshairs, that crossroads, that fork in the road. We're here, George. I mean, it's all happening.
It is frighteningly sober to me, Alex, because we knew it was happening. We knew it was happening way before the mainstream media did. Yet it's here, as you say, and the fact that, we're trying to figure out how to fix it, how to get around it, and there's not much people can do right now. They're holding on. I mean, thank God these 50 state attorneys generals are talking about stopping foreclosures for a while. So people